Let's get going. Awesome. We are good to go. Questions are appreciated. This is going to be a short webinar. The goal here is to get you all lined out on bubbles, answer your questions, see what concerns you may have, and also talk about best practices. You can see bubbles actually working down here in the left-hand side, bottom left-hand side. So let's look at it a minute. I want you to just notice some things. I can't stop it, so you're just going to have to look as it comes up here. Number one, you notice there's a slight bit of movement. You also notice that the border around what I call the bubble, okay, the social proof notification, which is randomized, which is why it's taking forever to come back. So here we go. You notice the border is approximately the same color as the color scheme of the page. Okay, this is a blue and red and white and black color scheme. But a lot of the visual elements on this page are bluish, right? Okay, so I mean, if a lot of the visual, I mean, this is just me talking. You do anything you want to. We tried to make this, which is hard to do, by the way, both easy to use and extremely flexible. The border gives it a little three-dimensional look, and the movement actually adds. Well, the movement helps it call itself out. It helps it say, well, here I am, right? I wanted you call these things social proof apps. This app being a plugin, you could also call it a social proof plugin. And what led to the creation of Bubbles was the fact that I wanted one for a business. I wanted a plugin that could do various things like this. And you know, I looked and looked and looked at all the usual suspects. I didn't like any of them. That was me slurping on my tea, by the way. I didn't like them because I thought they were too aggressive, too in your face. I don't remember which one it was, and even if I did, I wouldn't tell you because I don't want to, call anybody out. But there was one that said so and so just bought this, this whatever it was, 10 months ago. I mean that's weird, right? So and so just bought something 10 months ago. And so that's why we set about just developing our own. I wanted something that would do the job, but was a little quieter, had just enough information to get people to sit up and take notice, not too much to be off-putting, and especially not work counter to the sale, because you got to be really, really, really careful with this stuff. It's just like a testimonial. Okay, I mean, this social proof plugin, social proof app, it's really, in a way, it's a glorified testimonial. I mean, you can see this testimonial right here on the sales letter, right? I have to have the same concerns about the testimonial and sales letters. I mean, you could this is a real live, honest to God, approved by this person testimonial, but you wouldn't want it to be over the top. You wouldn't want it to be off-putting. You wouldn't want it to. I mean, I wouldn't publish that on a sales letter if it said something like that, but you wouldn't want it to say something unbelievable. You just got to tone this stuff down, because we're just so, and rightly so, especially online, we're just so hyper sensitive to BS, right? To fake news and all that stuff. So you got to be really careful with this. So we created Bubbles so that we could tone it down, so that we could have the social proof aspect, which is really important. Human beings are pack animals. We do things generally because other people do stuff. A lot of times we watch to see what the other person is doing. And there's a beautiful, wonderful book that I think I referenced in the sales letter by Robert Cialdini called Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion. Yeah, I reference this right here. I highly recommend that book if you haven't read it. But we're pack animals. We're like dogs. We're like a pack of wolves. Okay, human beings are. We're looking to see what the other wolves are doing, right? This is why we have leaders and gurus and stuff like that. They're like the top dog, right? I mean, we even have a phrase, top dog. So again, you know, with this social proof stuff, you're tapping into a major psychological vein that all humans have, but also because we're intelligent creatures, we sort of counterbalance that with I'm sure PhD psychologists don't call it this, but it's kind of like your bullshit detector, right? I mean, we're constantly wondering if the thing that we saw, a lot of times we should wonder if the thing that we saw or read or whatever, is that really true? Is that really right? Does that really make sense? You know, so we kind of have those two things, and I guess people with different personalities, some people who are a lot more impulsive than other people may not have as much of a braking system as others do. Some people who are extremely independent may not care too much what everybody's doing, or they may be like so independent that they decide to do whatever everybody else isn't doing, right? But by and large, this is what you're tapping into when you're using things like social proof, and quite frankly, when you're using something that looks a little more old school, I guess you would say, as a static testimonial. Okay, and then, you know, we've seen testimonials in all kinds of media for over 100 years now. I mean, we've seen advertising testimonials in print media for over 100 years now. So that was what Bubbles was about in the genesis of it. And also, I want you to really understand what you're doing with it. You're dealing with a potentially very powerful thing, but it's kind of like, well, we just had the 4th of July in the United States, and it's kind of like a firecracker. I mean, it's a cool thing, but you take one of those big firecrackers like an M80 and light it, and if you're holding it in your fingers when it goes off, you're going to have a problem, right? So this needs to be used wisely. It needs to be thought through. Just to go over briefly, I mean, you can look at the Bubbles training. It shows you how to, well, let's just go over this. You install Bubbles on your website, and when you download it from the members area, oh no, I have never held an M80. I have lit many of them, Mark, but never held one. So I learned just by watching. So anyway, you know, if you don't know how to install a plugin, there's a video in the members area about how to install Bubbles. So just do that. It's pretty easy. Hard to figure out if you don't know how to do it from the get-go. It's not necessarily intuitive, but once you've installed one, installing the rest of them are pretty much the same and pretty easy. And once you do that, you're going to see I'm in a WordPress site of ours, just on what's called the dashboard. And once you install it and license it, you get your license sent to you separately from an email from our license engine. And once you install it, you'll see those. Okay, so 3 pages. You can click on that. Let me do one more quick thing before I show you this. Let me just go back here. See where I click there where it said plugins? After you install it, you will see Bubbles listed. These are alphabetical, so exactly what you see on your website has to do with what your plugins are, okay? But here's Bubbles. We just pushed out yet another update. We had a big update, which was 1.0.3. That was a huge update. Added a lot of cool stuff, and I'm going to walk you through some of that. This update doesn't have anything, 1.0.4 doesn't have anything that you can see, but it just has some bug fixes. But if you don't see 1.0.4 and if you're not being prompted automatically by WordPress to update this, you can just click right here where it says check for updates. See where I'm pointing right here? And that will force your site to go to our site to check for updates, and then it should update 1.0.4. Again, if you ever have any issues, just hit us up in support. We're here to help you out. It's the internet. There's a lot of things going on. There's a, it's amazingly complex. And even in something so simple as a WordPress website, there's a ton of stuff all cobbled together from different places. So it is perfectly reasonable to have a bobble or two. So let us know if something's not working and we'll definitely look into it. Worst case, we'll just get your login from you and take a peek inside ourselves. So once you upload bubbles, get it licensed, you can see this. You can hover over these three things here. You click the first one, and you see the same two videos that you have in the members area. The how to install video, which is a little unnecessary considering that it's installed, but just out of thoroughness put it here, and the how to use video. And the how to use video covers everything except what's in the 1.0.3 update. So I want to talk to you about that some, and we'll probably switch out this video at some point. So let's talk about creating a bubble. And you probably, I know some of y'all are already using this. I recognize your name from some support tickets and things like that. And others of you may have bought it but haven't used it yet. So I want to just be really thorough and go over everything, not to bore the daylights out of you, but just to sort of catch everybody up. But as I do that, I'm going to be talking a lot about best practices. So this isn't just repetition. I have no idea what that is. This isn't just repetition of stuff, okay? So hang on. In the midst of what I'm talking about, this button, that thing, I'm going to be talking a lot about best practices. So pay attention to all that. So let's go here to manage bubbles. So this is where you create a bubble. This social proof notification, which I decided to call a bubble because I liked the idea. And you can see on this particular site, I've got a couple running. And when you create a bubble, we'll hit this create bubble button in a minute. And I'm not going to click every little tiny thing and bore the daylights out of you as I show you what it can do, because most of it you can play around with yourself. When I actually use this on a site, what I'll do is I'll have this part up on the site, and then I'll have the target page up so that I can actually look at the bubble as I change it, and then just hit refresh, and then we can see the changes that are made, et cetera, et cetera. Again, my goal is to just harmonize it, and so that it's not overpowering to the person viewing that page. I mean, I want this to be a pleasant little nudge. That seems to work really well. A pleasant little nudge, not a sort of an obnoxious push. Okay. A couple of things we added before we get into the create bubble thing. We added clone the bubble. So this is very, very useful. Once you get, well, like on a website, all my sales pages tend to have approximately the same color scheme, which I'm guessing is because the one picture of me without my sunglasses on has a blue shirt. I don't know, but I just kind of like blue. And so, I've got the blue, I got the blues figured out. I put in the right color and all that stuff and played around with it. So why should I screw around doing that again when I can just clone the bubble, right? And then it'll, make a version 2 of the same bubble. I would have to go back in and edit that bubble so that it would be for a different page, saying different stuff. But we did add a clone bubble link right there. So that will do that. I think that was a really important upgrade. If you want to delete a bubble, just click it and delete the bubble right there. But let's look at this when it says create bubbles. And I'm not going to go, I'm not going to go through absolutely everything. Most of this, we try really, really hard to make things so that you can just look at them and understand it without really having to spend a lot of time with a lot of training. But So, but again, you know, if I miss something and just flat out don't understand it, hit us up in support. So you have to name it, okay? Name of the bubble, name of the product name, excuse me, name of your bubble, name of your product name, and the URL of the sales page. It would probably help if we looked at this edit bubble button, actually. So bubbles, bubbles, bubbles. Now notice, well, it's not really the URL, is it? It's actually the page or post name. So let's do this. Let's just go here and let's just look at, you know, WordPress has pages and posts. It also has another thing which you see on some, this is an upgrade that we made recently too. It also has another thing that you see on some themes and also can be done by, you know, can be created by some plugins called custom post types, which is basically a page or a post or a piece of media or something that's been tweaked by the software. Bubbles will work with that now also. But see, here's a page, and if I just look at my pages, then you will notice that there's a page whose name is Bubbles, right? And that is indeed what we're talking about here. So instead of the URL of the page, instead of me taking, well, this whole thing, all right, what I would do is I would look here and actually find the name of the page and put that there, okay? So originally when we created this, it was created just for sales letters and just for squeeze pages in the internet marketing world. And so just bought, just downloaded, and just signed up to seemed to cover 99% of the bases, 99% of the uses. But as soon as it was created and I started using it, I realized that it had a lot more functionality. And then, you know, we sold it, and then other people were using it and, you know, realized that it had a lot more functionality. So these three options just didn't cover it, right? So another thing that we came out with our recent big update was a custom text type. Now the text is, we're going to have to wait 2 seconds for it to show up, or longer. This is randomized, right? I mean, it doesn't just, see that just bought? That's the text. You can control the color of that, and now you can even control the wording of that. So you can put that in here. You would click that radio button and put that in here, and then that, instead of just bought that you just saw on that bubble, it's going to have, you could do something like just read this post, just called our office, or something like that. Makes it very, very flexible. Text color, background type, background color. I think all of that is fairly easy for you to figure out. Border has to do with the border, obviously, the border being, I should have had a static picture, that little blue thing going around there, right? Padding, position, you know, position is what part of the position of the page. This also works on a mobile device. It won't position it exactly the way that it positions on a computer screen on a mobile device or a tablet, because that has to do with the dimensions of the thing, but it will get it approximately in the position that it needs to be. One thing that I played around with a lot when I first started playing with this, and that I really wanted to be able to do, and this gets back into the whole psychology thing, which is kind of like where I personally live. I'm a salesperson. I'm a copywriter. I mean, I run 2 businesses, but in both of those things that I do, what I bring to the table is understanding how to sell stuff. Okay, I mean, sales psychology is where I live and breathe. You know, there's some venues, some places where you can just be a lot more outspoken, a lot more in your face, a lot more, you know, a lot more waving your arms saying, look at me, look at me, look at me, okay? Or What would that be? Like if you had a website that's, okay, well, this would just be a kind of a trivial example, but if you had a website that sold custom skateboards, okay, custom skateboards, it was a really radical looking website, lots of graphics, lots of cool stuff. Your little bubble is going to get lost in the midst of all that busyness. If you will notice that my sales letter, I mean, at least on the sides, and this is on purpose, is not very busy. Now, down the middle, in some places, it's busy, okay? But it's very vertical, and it's really not all that busy graphically. It's a little busy, but it's not amazingly busy. I don't have a lot of competing colors, is what I'm saying. But that's part of the issue. So let's watch for this thing to come up. So just a little nod, just a little movement is enough for someone who's sitting here reading this to go over here and see the bubble and say, oh, that's pretty interesting, you know? Okay, so Ulysses just bought this, okay? You know, just enough to get their attention, but not enough to, you don't want the person to actually just focus on the social proof part, right? Because if they're just like fascinated by, totally distracted by the thing happening over here, they're going to miss out on why they're on your website. Okay, the goal is to help the website work better, not to draw attention to this thing over here. Okay, this thing over here needs to complement and harmonize with the website. So a little movement here, because this stuff right here can get a little busy, right? So a little movement, oh, there it is. Just and also somebody reading is generally reading in this area, right? I mean, and if you have a video a website with YouTube videos embedded in it, they're generally looking right in the middle. And you wouldn't want your social proof to be right in the middle, because that's going to really annoy people, because they're going to think, well, heck, I was sitting here looking at your video. I don't need to see that. That's why it's off to the side, and that's why the motion. But you can imagine with some websites where you've got, and there are a few, where you've got a lot of competing stuff, a lot more sidebars. Notice this website has no widgets. The website does, the page doesn't. Has no widget, has no sidebars. This stuff is really low key. That's no navigation bar. There's a reason for all that, because I don't want to take away from the experience of reading the sales letter, right? Well, what if you added that back in and actually had that? Well, that stuff all competes. All those things compete with each other, and all those things make it harder for the person, the viewer, your, person actually looking at the website. It makes it harder for them to concentrate on the content, on the reason that they're there, whether that be reading something or looking at a video or whatnot, right? They have more competing stuff. So that means that if you have a lot of competing stuff, you're going to have to be able to amp up the movement a little bit. This little puppy might get lost in the midst of a really, really busy website, which is why, let's go back to here, why we added this, spin in and spin out, okay? It just does that, I think, if I save it, and let's just submit the changes. I'm not going to do this a bunch and bore you while I show you what everything does, but let me just show you this example. Did it? I blinked. Did it do that? Yeah. Yeah. Did you see it spin? So now it spins and it nods, right? To my mind, for this page, that's a little too much, right? I mean, that's just like, this is going to get to be off-putting. Now, and also it's really fast. You can slow it down, okay? But this is getting off-putting. But you could have, some of our customers do have websites where you've got so much busyness, you need to make this thing announce itself a little more in comparison to all the other crap you got going on, so that people actually see it. All right, so My goal is I want people to see it. I want it to register with people, but just barely, right? In other words, I don't want it to register so much that they start looking at this thing a ton and forget why they're on the site in the first place. So for this site, for this site, that's too busy. So let's go back and edit that out. And we can just do that real easy. We'll save all this stuff in a minute. So we'll just take that out. And you can play around with these other things. The jiggle is the little nod up and down, fade in and fade out, rounded corners. I like rounded corners online. The other things that you can do to really affect the way the bubble looks to your audience is in these last three things. But we'll talk about the loop and why we added that in a minute. So in these last three things, animation time, time to start, and time between bubbles. Let's talk about this middle one, time to start. Time to start just means, and you just set it for fast, medium, and slow, but just means after the page loads, well, I hadn't saved it, that's why it's still spinning, but how soon are you going to see one of these things? Even though the time between bubbles is randomized, we got to start sometime, right? I mean, you don't want somebody just land, probably you don't want somebody just land on the site and immediately they get a notification. That looks a little weird, unless let's say that you've got a sales letter and you had just launched a product. Okay, or maybe you've got your list and you've just got a new thing that you launched to your list. So it would make total sense and probably is really true that a bunch of people are landing on that page doing stuff per unit time. So it would make sense for your bubble to just fire off fairly rapidly. If, however, you've got a website and it's getting traffic on a little more, let's say, instead of a sudden way, and just a little traffic, some X number of visitors every day where X doesn't change a bunch in a little more consistent way, then you would probably want this to slow down how soon you saw the bubble from the time that the site actually loaded on the page actually loaded on the person's computer. That's what time to start's all about. Okay, and you notice I've got it set on medium. If we were in the middle of a launch, I might do it on fast, or I could do it on slow. Tell you what, we'll pop it down to slow a little bit. Animation time is the time that the bubble itself is going through its various movements. These right here, various movements, fade in, fade out, jiggle, spin in, spin out. Those are animations, right? The movement of the social proof notification itself. So that controls really how long you're going to see a given bubble out there. So let's see here. Let's wait until one appears. So from now until now, that's animation time. Okay, so how long are you gonna see it out there? That's animation time. Okay, so you want it to be out there. I personally tend to prefer a little slower animation time because I want it to be out there long enough for, just think about what someone's doing on your website. Now, you and I know that this thing is down here and we're very interested in it. We're on a webinar about it, so we're kind of looking at the bottom left corner. But what if you just landed on this page and you didn't even know about all that? Well, you want it to be up there long enough so that it can register in the person's head so that they can look at it, and so that they can at least read enough of it to see kind of sort of what that's all about. It's a teaser, right? So you want them to have enough time to actually get teased. Just bought. Somebody just bought. Okay, I want it to be up there long enough so that my viewer can say, oh, somebody just bought this. Isn't that cool? Okay, that's what the animation time. Now, time between bubbles, we added an extra slow session, and that was a much needed improvement. Again, this goes to the rationale of using the social proof app in various settings. The time between bubbles, so one bubble appears, it goes through its animation, it disappears, and then the next bubble appears, goes through its animation, disappears. So you don't want the time between the animations to be exactly the same, probably, because that's just going to look kind of weird, and it looks kind of awkward, and it looks very contrived. With the time between the bubbles appearing is randomized, so an extra slow, we have a maximum time of 5 minutes, so it could be as long as 5 minutes between when, let's say, bubble A appears. It could be randomly as long as 5 minutes and before bubble B appears, right? Or a minimum time of 30 seconds. So think about where you would use that. Well, you would use that on websites, on web pages rather, where it makes sense that you're getting probably more consistent traffic, but maybe not a ton of traffic all at the same time. Not a ton of people actually taking whatever action you want them to take, whether it's the stated action. I mean, I have what's called a call to action down here. Okay, I tell you what to do next. Okay, here's what you need to do. You need to buy the damn thing, right? Say, I tell you what to do. That's a call to action. Some web pages have a stated call to action. Do this, download this, watch this video. Okay, but other like a whole world of them have an unstated action that you want people to take, and a lot of times that would be read my blog post. Let's say you've got a blog about I don't know. Let me make up something non-markety. Best hiking trails in Nevada. Now, I don't live anywhere near Nevada. I live on catty cornered across the United States from Nevada and Georgia. But let's just go with that. Best hiking trails in Nevada. Well, what do you want to happen, right? I mean, fundamentally, you want people to read your article about this new hiking trail that, let's say, the state of Nevada just opened up in some new state park, right? That you just hiked and took a bunch of pictures of and stuff like that. Okay, so you need to, again, you're thinking through why people are there. And, it might make sense for Louise Louise just read the article. She said she loves it, something like that. You could have a bubble say that, because we could come back up here and just say custom text type, just read the article, okay? Or just watched their new video. Very cool. Of course, the very cool part, we'll talk about where that last part comes in later, because it doesn't come in on this page right here. So that's the rationale behind the extra slow. Okay, the extra slow would be generally used for websites where it makes sense that there's not a crush of traffic of people doing stuff. If and again, somebody's landing on a page where you've got a 20-minute video about your hike, little sections, put together from your hike on the new hiking trail. Well, I mean, it's going to take 20 minutes for somebody to, look at the video. That doesn't mean two people can't look at the video at the same time, but it just makes sense that you want to slow that way down. That's why the extra slow. The loop through the buyers. We'll get to where the buyers come from in a minute, and why they come like this, because it's really different the way we did this than other social proof apps. But that wasn't by accident. So the loop through the buyers. And I'm trying to figure out how to explain this in the best way. So we will go see where the buyers come from in a second, but basically you upload all your buyers. I'll explain to you why I did it like that instead of going out, instead of getting what's called an IPN or something like that and pulling that information off of that. Which we could have done, but and that's what a lot of other social proof apps similar to this actually do or try to do. Usually they fail at doing that and just look stupid. But with Bubbles, you actually upload the buyers. So you could loop through, but why would you want to loop through? Well, you want to loop through because if somebody's landing, if somebody's going to stay on your page for a really long time for whatever reason, okay? Let's say that it's one page that's got an entire video course on it, and you're trying to really, you're making the point of the sales point would be, hey, I've got incredibly good information. I'm giving away this 4-part video course. Sit here and look at the whole thing and then sign up for my coaching. And you got a big button at the bottom that says sign up for coaching. Okay, something like that. But where you've got a lot of content that someone goes through. Well, if you don't have a lot of buyers loaded up for that particular bubble, let's say you had 3, all right? Well, your 3 buyers are going to fire off. That's, you know, within a few minutes, or if you just hit the lottery on the slow setting, the maximum that statistically is hardly ever going to happen, but the maximum time between landing on the page and the last buyer showing up of the 3 would be 15 minutes. 3 times 5 because the largest interval on the slow setting was 5 minutes, but statistically that's not going to happen because it's randomized. So, you know, if you want, let's say you have a small number of buyers and you feel that your visitor is going to be on the page for a really long time, you really don't want them to see the same buyer over and over and over again. That's just going to look stupid. Okay, so that's why you may not want to loop this. Okay, you might want to loop it because you know, you have a larger number of buyers and you just want to go through it again. Okay. For me personally, it's 6 one, half dozen the other. I generally upload a number of buyers and I replace those. We'll talk about the ethics of the buyer thing when we get to the buyers, but I replace those with real buyers after a while. And so personally, I'm fine with the not looping thing. But if you're using a small number, you know, again, you might want to not loop or loop. Basically, I think I'm stumbling around trying to say this is added for flexibility. One thing I noticed after we sold this, you know, I have made my living online for close to 10 years now, and but I have a specific set of a few things that I do in all my businesses. And one thing I noticed that when we sell this is, and it makes total sense, not everybody's a clone of me, right? And so as we were making modifications to this, as we were adding more functionality, it was really because I was getting some, you know, support ticket. I'm glad I was getting support tickets back and say, yeah, well, this little thing isn't quite working. You know, and I would sit there and look at it and talk to the developer about it and would say, you know, that would be pretty easy fix to sort of broaden the functionality out here some. So that really is why we added the loop, okay? Because I can't tell what you think you need to do. Okay, I know what I need to do, but I can't tell what you think you need to do. So therefore, I added that in. I'm trying to make it my overall goal. I don't want to just kill y'all with this, and I really want to keep this webinar as short as I can. I mean, I've got time. I just know you guys are busy. My overall goal is to, you know, I'm moving my online part of my business more toward creating a lot of software. Okay. And that's not just to sell stuff. I'm freaking really good at selling stuff. I got more stuff to sell than I can get to. That's because I've been doing this a really long time. I have trouble finding software that actually does work as stated, or even if it works, that it really does the job the way I think it needs doing. Now, granted, I have a massive amount of experience with this stuff. Okay, so at least to me, my opinion of what I think needs to do the job is pretty good. In other words, I'm generally right, or at least I think I am right. So, but I wanted to create software that you guys could actually use, and not just crap to sell you. Okay, I'm a very proficient sales letter writer. I could just create crap to sell you. I don't want to do that. I mean, that makes me feel weird. It makes me feel just kind of slimy. But B, that's a very short-sighted way of doing a business, right? I mean, if I can create really good software that you guys actually use in your various businesses over a long period of time, then you will buy from me over and over and over again as we create more, and we got a whole slew of stuff coming out, as we create more really useful pieces of software that really work on websites, that's really supported, and that will really work for you in the various businesses that you're in. That's the overall goal here. So that's why we're kind of bending over backwards with, the support, and adding in the extra stuff. I already got your money, okay, and you're already beyond the refund, my stated refund time. But and I'm not a hard ass about that. But yeah, that's going to be hard for me to answer, Mark, because I'll read that out to you, Mark's statement, in just a second. And I'll answer that as best I can without just unnecessarily trashing something else. But yeah, I think I've explained myself about where my heart is on the software thing. But that's the goal. The goal is to create seriously good software that people use for a very long time and build real businesses with. Mark, let me get back to what you just said. Let's submit these changes. And let's go to manage buyers, and let's talk about buyers. So most of these social proof apps work through what's called an IPN. An IPN is, I've called it an IPN for so long I forgot what the heck it means. Individual purchase notification, and yeah, I think that's it. So when somebody buys something like through PayPal, they pay through PayPal. PayPal creates this, I think it's an XML, but it creates a file that gets sent, that can get sent back to you with a ginormous amount of information about it, about the transaction. And you probably don't even know this is happening in the background, but it's happening. So this is how Warrior Plus or JVZoo or all that stuff, this is how they figure out who bought what and assign the right product to the right place under the right email address and all that stuff. So this is necessary stuff. But that IPN contains an enormous amount of information. It contains your email address, your name. It's going to have your address on it, because your PayPal account is associated with a physical address. So it's going to have that on it and all that stuff. Most of these social proof apps like Bubbles will say that, Mark, I'm going to use your name, and I have no idea what part of the world you live in, Mark. I'm just free-forming here. I'm stuck on Nevada today, so we'll just use Nevada. Most of them say something like, well, if one would come up, Mark from Nevada just bought Bubbles, 5 minutes ago, 2 minutes ago, something like that. That's pretty cool. But when we hit the GDPR, the Global Data Protection regulation, which, personally, I'm in the United States. I'm not really worried about, the Germans getting pissed off at me about something. But I do recognize that Privacy protection is an extremely important issue, even if I might kind of like, think, well, who the hell are they to tell me what to do with data that's freely available, That's not the issue. It might be the issue, but that's not the issue. The issue with me is people coming to my website, people buying my products thinking, well, wait a damn minute. I mean, we're having such an issue in the world with data anyway. I mean, Equifax, one of the giant credit rating companies, had like, millions of records stole with all kinds of information about people. I mean, it's a big and deal. Identity theft, a big deal. So it makes sense that people are getting really hip to that and that they're starting to worry, well, what's happening with my data? Okay, so the GDPR is really just a governmental type, quasi-governmental entity, the EU trying to come up with some sort of solution to that. I don't happen to think that particular solution is all that great, but nobody asked me. But I am sensitive to this. And I'm a little sensitive to Mark coming to a sales letter and buying something, and then, maybe he's on an upsell page or something like that, and it automatically says Mark from Nevada just bought, and Mark's sitting there thinking, well, wait a minute, what the hell? How did he get that? How does he know? I mean, it's just a little weird in the world we live in. So, two reasons that I wanted to do this way, that I didn't want to pull that IPN notification information. I know it looks really slick to do that, but to me, it's just too much. Again, it's just way too much, okay? So this is how we decided to do this. So I'm going to tell you the how, and then I'm going to tell you what I think is the ethics of doing this. We can add buyers one by one, okay? So as what Bubbles is doing is it's randomly selecting, okay, for this particular page. Remember, we told it when we created that particular bubble, we told it the name of the page or the post, that it's going to run the bubble on, right? But so it goes through our list of buyers, okay, see, for products, so these people's for these products bubbles, right? It goes through this list of buyers and it just randomly pulls them out in a random way. So the timing between the bubbles is randomized and the particular buyer is randomized. And then it's just showing that here. Okay, so that's how it gets the person's name. Now, the ethics of doing this, I mean, it's a gray area, isn't it? Quite frankly, right? I mean, it's a gray area. Let's say you launch a brand new product that no one has ever bought anything of. Well, it's honestly a gray area to say, hang on, Mark, that's a great question. We'll get you're having some great questions. We'll have a little Q&A in just a few minutes, guys, as we wrap up. But I mean, it's a gray area. So you want, I mean, your goal is to stimulate sales, right? But then, I mean, I personally just not going to flat out lie that that's just wrong, and it's A, I just don't do that, and B, I'm pretty sure it's going to bite me in the butt somehow, even if I did do that. So what I do is I would have a little seed list of someone who bought a similar thing from me in the past, okay? And notice these names. These are real buyer names, by the way. I've just taken enough information out so that whoever Larry is. I mean, I got I got thousands upon thousands of buyers who bought my products now. Okay, well, I'm not bragging. I'm just saying there's thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands of them. There's got to be a zillion Larrys, right? So it's not one person, but there was a Larry at one point who bought a product. Okay, so that's what I do. I will take these names out, and we cut off the last name just to which you can do in Excel pretty easily. We cut off the last name, and I have a little seed list, okay, that I start out with. But as soon as I get buyers for something, then I replace that with actual buyers, okay? So the seed list starts it out. Mark, to answer your question, how many buyers would I put on a page? I think my seed list has like 20 buyers on it. Of course, most people landing on these pages, they land. Some people spend a lot of time reading this stuff, but most people aren't going to be here forever, right? You know, it's not like the example of watching the 30-minute video about the new hiking trail in the new state park in Nevada, right? I don't think it's going to take 30 minutes to get through this sales letter. So I need enough buyers so that it's not just saying Mark bought, Mark bought, Mark bought, Mark bought, Mark bought, and that just looks stupid, right? Okay. But I need enough to where it'll do that. So I need my seed list. But as soon as we get a few sales going, you can just click, 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 click here and delete the selected buyer. You delete everybody here. Don't hit that button unless you want to. But click, 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 and then delete the selected buyers. So then we delete the seed list and just start adding in the new buyers. That is, I know that's manual, and I know it's kind of a pain in the butt, but that is the only way I could parse this whole issue between the privacy thing, which I think is really, really important on people's minds. You may be happy to just sort of, you know, play loosey, you know, play fast and loose with that issue, but I can guarantee you the people visiting your website are not happy about playing fast and loose with that issue. It's a big deal globally. All right. So, you know, we got the privacy issue, but then we also want to leverage technology. We want to sell more stuff. And, you know, I mean, this is a killer piece of software for an amazingly low price. So it is ethical that I do everything in my power ethically to get this in other people's hands. So that's why the buyers are set up like this. Okay, that's why it's manual, because the only other way is for me to actually pull it from the IPN notification, and we could come up with some way of pulling it from the IPN notification, putting it in a database and storing it for a while and coming up with some randomized thing. But that's an ginormous, it's not ginormous. That's fair. I couldn't charge what I charge for this plugin if we did that. Okay. But that would be the only other way for me to handle the buyer issue, would be something like that. Just again, don't want to give away too much information. Don't want to make people feel like I'm giving away their personal information, but I do want to stimulate sales because I've got a fantastic product. So, no, Mark, no. Okay, so Mark, you're asking some wonderful questions. Thank you. Let me start at the top and I'll answer all your questions. And we've been on here almost an hour, so then we'll wrap it up, guys. Okay. So my other Mark's very interested in this. He's asking a lot of wonderful questions. If anybody else wants to ask wonderful questions, please do so now. Interested in what I generally think about the other software. Well, Mark, the other software that I looked at, the other social proof apps and plugins and whatnot, and that's, you know, some of them are cloud-based. I don't really like cloud-based software. There's a reason for that, because you know, I've done stuff like that in the past. If my site gets hacked, if that company decides to get sold to some other company and they want to quit supporting that kind of thing, then I got a whole bunch of people who are paying me or who have paid me money to use something and they can't use it, right? So that's why I don't do cloud-based stuff. I'm not saying that I never, that there wouldn't in the future. I'm just saying that's why I kind of avoid it. The reason we do this right now as plugins is because once you upload it to your site as a plugin, then it has nothing to do with me and my hosting, right, and my server. Okay, it's on your server. So that was an issue that I was interested in when I started thinking through this. Another thing, you know, in other words, I think a lot of the others either give away too much information. I mean, it's a little scary. It's just a little like Big Brother-ish, if you remember the book 1984. You know, it's just like too much information. But also some of them just screw up and look stupid. All right. So, you know, they'll say, you know, some of them try to pull pictures. They don't get pictures. They'll substitute a map for it. I don't know why the hell you need a little tiny map about the size of, I don't know, about the size of a penny. I can't see the thing on my computer anyway. I mean, does that really prove anything that we've got a thing that's green with some streets running through it? I don't know what that proves. Um, and the other issue that I wanted to avoid was the connection between the social proof notification and when the person actually bought something, because I saw more than one from more than one vendor, from more than one software developer that would say something like, Lee just bought this 10 months ago. And I'm like, yeah, that's going to make me buy this. Lee just bought this 10 months ago. That right there is going to completely destroy the sale for me. Okay, so I didn't want to do that. So that's, you know, I think, Mark, you could pull out of that. What I probably didn't see every single one out there. I did not make an exhaustive study. I looked at a few. I thought, well, those are not going to work for me. So I got together with our developer and I said, let's make one that's going to work for us the way we like to do things. How many buyers would you put on a page? Start with 20. Should you wait to put recent buyers on? No, not at all, not at all. So let's say, Mark, you had just a few buyers on your seed list, say 5. I said start with 20, but let's say you started with 5. And let's say that you had 4 people who bought stuff. Well, yeah, you just go ahead and upload them. You can just add them to the party. You can upload them right here. Download a sample CSV file. Let's just open that real fast. Give me a second, and then Excel will open that. This is what you want. You got to save it as a CSV file. You can't save it as a whatever. I've forgotten the ending for an Excel file, but you got to save it as a CSV file. But you can have person and then the product name. So this would be bubbles. Okay, so it's going to basically end up these 3 columns: name, product, quote, if you want to quote, right here. Okay. And again, you know, I have a seed list, but as soon as I can replace that, I replace that. Okay, with real people, with real buyers, and you know, people tell me all the time, support email, man, this is a great piece of software. I loved it, so try to ethically put in these things as I can. So no, Mark, you can go ahead and just add these people in, right? So if I wanted, you know, Bubbles has several people on this list, but if I wanted to add in 10 more, I would just upload 10 more. It doesn't write them over, it just adds them to it. And if you want to download a CSV file of all your buyer data, just so that you can see what's going on there, you can do that. Just FYI, guys. And this is probably would not be a free upgrade. Let me explain that while I got you on here. There's some things that I want to do to Bubbles that are going to take a lot of coding. As a matter of fact, we might, this is not happening anytime soon. Okay, this might happen next year. Okay, but I'm just you know, just total transparency here. There's some things that I would like to add to this, like there's going to take an intense amount of coding. I can't just upgrade you for free to that, but I will always, for things like that, for version 2s and version 3s and version 4s, notice we're currently on version 1.0.4. So all those first level versions, you know, 1.0.5, 1.0.6, 1.0.7, you know, you bought it, you get upgraded to that for free. Okay, you just check for your updates, it's yours, it's there, you know, you click the update thing, you do the update. You got the new functionality. As I said, as I showed you, we've already added a lot of new functionality to this. It was fairly easy to add though, and didn't require a complete recoding of the whole thing. But if I do go create a version 2, 3, et cetera, which I may well do, and have to recode the whole thing, because we have to rebuild it from the ground up to, you know, then I would charge you for that. Okay, I think that's fair, but I will always give you a coupon. Okay, I will always reward you for having bought the first one. All right, so that's we've been on here an hour, guys. I think that's pretty much what I wanted you to understand. I wanted to really help you understand what I see as the sales psychology of using bubbles and social proof and any kind of social proof, whether it be testimonials. It's, I mean, it's like fire. I mean, you can burn down your house. In other words, you can destroy the sales process with it, but used right, which is just, you just got to pull back a little bit and just think, you know, this is one of these less is more type things, right? But used right, then it can be a wonderful thing, and it can definitely enhance your conversions. So I've covered pretty much all that I wanted to cover on this. Anybody got any? I'm recording this. It's going to end up in the members area probably tomorrow, probably under where you download the software, something like that. I'll get my guy to put it in there. But anything else before we call it today? And any other burning questions? Anything I need to know? Cool beans. Okay, guys, thank you so much for being on the webinar. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate your buying bubbles. Hope you're enjoying it. Hope you're using it. It's an awesome little piece of software. And just so you know, there is so much more coming out. Really cool stuff that you can really use to build a real business around. And I would leave you with this last thing. I've been doing this for 10 years. God willing, I'm not going anywhere. I mean, if that happens, then I'm totally out of control. You know, I mean, that's not within my control, right? i.e. exiting the planet. But, you know, this is my business. I'm here. I've been here for many years, and I'm planning on being here for many, many more years. My son now works with me in my business, so it's a family business now. The software is being developed so that you can depend on it. It's being supported so that you can depend on it. We want you to use it. We want you to make money with it. Okay? Thank you so much. Y'all have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you very, very soon.